Dear distinguished guests, parents, faculty, the class of 2022, thank you for the great honor of addressing you today. And thank you, Dean Antman, for that kind introduction. And to the 164 of you who are about to embark on this new journey, I want to say that I am in awe of you. Hailing from 36 different countries and 16 different US states and speaking 19 different languages. Even before the experiences of the last 2.5 years united you during this pandemic, you are remarkable. I often heard say that most interesting people don't get to live ordinary lives. And by that measure, you might be one of the most interesting classes the BU School of Medicine has ever graduated. And although the saying, "may you live in interesting times," is sometimes uttered as a curse, you have taken the experience of the last 2 years and you've turned it into a testament of your will, your intellect, your flexibility, your heart. When there were shortages in personal protective equipment in area hospitals, you stepped up and mobilized to help where there was the need. Even as your rotations and your schedules were affected, you were always present to meet the needs of our patients. You helped conduct critical science during this pandemic. You answered, I'm sure of this one, millions of questions about viruses and vaccines and symptoms from family members and friends and neighbors. And when the fault lines in our society that already existed were magnified by this crisis, disproportionately affecting some of our communities, you spoke up. Today, on your graduation, you enter a world that has, for better or for worse, changed forever. And as you enter this world of new challenges, go forth knowing that no matter what it throws at you, you've already proven your mettle. When you invited me to speak here today, you asked me to speak about equity and epidemics. As Dr. Paul Farmer, the co-founder of Partners in Health, always said, the idea that some lives are worth less or matter less is the root of all that is wrong in the world. As you know, we lost Paul this year. I had the privilege of working with him during the West African Ebola virus disease epidemic. And that epidemic, more than any other event in my life, changed the way I view the world, both as a person and as a physician. And to what Tiffany said, it was an exemplar of feeling powerless as a physician and as a healthcare worker. I've worked in global health my entire life, but my work in Ebola treatment units crystallized for me that more people in the world die from lack of access to resources that already exist, rather than from lack of resources that haven't yet been invented or discovered. That's not to say that innovation isn't important, but innovation can only change the world for the positive when it's accessible. I've had thought on Paul's words for a while, and I think that they encompass everything I can tell you about inequities and societies and plagues. You cannot speak about epidemics without speaking of inequities. We collectively change the face of the earth, and yet the price of climate change, the loss of biodiversity, and the risk of spillover of new infections between animals and humans is faced most deeply by our most vulnerable communities. Nearly half the world doesn't have access to essential health services. And so we always miss case clusters, which would go on to become outbreaks, which become epidemics because it's always too late. If more researchers around the world help set the scientific agenda and more patients were able to partake in research and participate, we would not have neglected diseases of poverty. The fact that we can create silver bullets and effective vaccines and treatments and continue to have a global pandemic rage into the 3rd year is a reflection of the fact that not everyone has equal access. or equal voice. In a 2015 report, the National Academies coined the term the cycle of panic and neglect, a phenomenon where we pour everything we have into responding to epidemics. But when the threat subsides, we forget to strengthen the infrastructure that prevents the next one. And the reason we forget is because these crises generally subside first from areas with the most resources. Suffering, once again, becomes relegated to places that we don't have to see every day. We can stop this cycle. We can stop it by remembering that when some of us are threatened by outbreaks, we are all vulnerable. This may not be our brightest moment right now globally about getting along as a species, but it is without a doubt the golden age of science, which you are about to enter with your skills. We've made incredible strides in technology. Innovations like stabilized messenger RNA could save millions of lives lost usually to tuberculosis and malaria and other diseases. But the answer will not lie in just discovering the solutions, but ensuring that all of us have access to them. And in this way, plagues are a litmus test for our own humanity. Because as the Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe said, you cannot trample on the values, the humanity of others without devaluing your own. My hope for you is that no matter what you choose to do with the rest of your life, you do not forget the lessons of the last 2 years and what the pandemic has brought to the forefront. We lost up to potentially 15 million souls off the face of this earth in the last 2.5 years. Be an advocate for change. Be a force for good. The poet Amanda Gorman summarized this perfectly when she said, "Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. Even as we grieved, we grew. Even as we hurt, we hoped. That even when we tired, we tried." Your path will no doubt be even more complicated than one faced by your faculty. I can guarantee it, because the world is only becoming more difficult to navigate. Anti-science sentiment is on the rise. Evidence and opinion seem to compete on equal footing. Our work as scientists and healthcare workers is now complicated by myth and disinformation. Despite being more closely connected as a globe than ever, our divides seem to be larger than ever. I have no doubt that you in particular, this class, will meet these new challenges, that you'll find new ways to listen and learn and to connect with people, because you created a community despite the challenges of this pandemic, which kept us apart physically at times. I want to end with Joseph Campbell, who said, "I don't think meaning of life is what we're seeking. It is the experience of being alive, so that our life experiences on this purely physical plane will have resonance within our own innermost being and reality, so that we actually feel rapture of being alive. In other words, we give purpose to our own lives by finding things that speak to our soul. I wish for you all a lifetime of resonance, of feeling of being alive in your personal lives and work, through discovery, through advocacy, through finding your purpose. And I wish in 2 decades or so, you get to stand where I am standing and you get to look out and you see what I am seeing. A hope for a better world. Continue to be the most extraordinary and interesting class this school has ever graduated, and congratulations on your achievements. Thank you.